Well, hey everybody, it's Brett. Welcome to Philosophy. This is my first time teaching this course for this college. They had a last minute request to add additional sections, so here we are. I'm doing this section for us. But welcome. I've been teaching philosophy for quite some time, maybe about 10 years. Got my start at West Point. You can read my introduction way down at the bottom of that announcements. Read a little bit about me. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a philosopher above all, and we're going to spend the next 8 weeks together learning a little bit about philosophy. Let me talk a couple of things about our course. Make sure you understand what's happening and keep it as basic and as simple as I can so that we're not too terribly confused. First of all, I'm starting to read through the introductions. We got people all over the planet, people from Germany, people in Hawaii, people everywhere. So welcome to our course. For our service members on active duty, thank you for your service. For our veterans, thank you for the service that you perform. For our families of service members, thank you for your service and your sacrifice. Often sacrifices that go beyond those that we, our service members, have had to make. For those that are not affiliated with the Army, thank you for your hard work here through the college and the other colleges as you pursue those degrees, and we all hopefully improve our lives. Second thing I want to mention, did you ever have a read through the syllabus? Again, this was a course that they just, an extra section, they asked me to teach this, so all of the stuff that you find in our course, they sort of handed to me and said, hey, go now and teach this course. So a lot of it is wonderful material. We're going to make use of most of it. In a couple places, if I were writing a course, I might have something different to say. Here's the one thing I want to bring out, first of all, in terms of an expectation. Right? This is a 100 level course. It's an introduction to philosophy course. The very worst thing that I can do is make it way too hard for you, make it way too complex so that you never want to take another philosophy class. If that happens, I have failed. So I'm not interested in making this a graduate level course. I want you to have fun with the ideas and entertain them. So when our syllabus says that you should expect to spend 18 hours per week on this course, I think that that's crazy. I don't want you to spend 18 hours per week on this course. In fact, what I recommend is, and most colleges recommend, is that you spend 2 hours outside the course for every hour that you're in the course. This is a 3 credit hour class, so you should probably be spending 6 hours in total in the week. So that's 9 hours altogether in a week on the course. If you're spending more than that, then you're missing out on something else that's important. Kids and birthdays and parties and dinner with your family. So don't sacrifice any of that for this 100 level introduction to philosophy course. Trust me. You're going to do just fine, and we're going to do this all together. And we really, when you think about it, we got 4 things that we got to pay attention to in this course. Four things to do. And they're kind of on the board behind me. That's a little out of focus. I'm in a big room, but let's talk about them very briefly. Okay, so first and foremost, we have 8 weeks. And every week there is a discussion forum. If you had an online course before, you're familiar with the discussion forum. We have 8 weeks, 8 discussion forums. Every week in the discussions there are 2 parts to a question. You have to respond to each of those things. So these weekly discussions are worth 35% of the total grade. 35%. I hope that comes out in the video. So that's what you do every week. I had a question already posted in the messages. Said, hey Brett, is a paragraph enough? How much do I write? I've read through the syllabus, but it doesn't really say. Here's what our syllabus says about those weekly discussions. Each week you will respond to a question or several questions posted in the discussions area of the classroom, and then there's the standard requirement to post 3 substantive responses to other classmates' postings. But it doesn't tell you how much you got. How much do I write? How much is enough? Well, I answered one student who asked how much do I write? Is a paragraph enough? I said the shortest answer is yes, write a paragraph. Right? The longer answer is a bit more complex. If you ask Brett's perspective, the answer is this: you have to answer the question. Sometimes you can do that in a paragraph. Sometimes it might take 2 paragraphs. You might want to take 3. You have to answer the question, and an answer to the question is both accurate and complete. So you can have an accurate response to the question, but it not be complete, and you wouldn't sort of get full credit. Here's the example that I used. Our first week, the discussion focuses on Plato's allegory, the cave. Great story. The video this week, a little cartoon, is kind of neat. It's a great story. And the question revolves around the 4 first part of the question revolves around the 4 stages of the cave, 4 basic stages of the cave. Well, if you said the 4 basic stages of the cave are 1, 2, 3, 4 separated by a comma period, that's in a sentence, that is accurate. Assuming you get the stages right, that's an accurate response, but it certainly isn't complete because there's so much more to say about each of the stages, how they come about, what happens in each stage, what's the identifying feature of that particular stage, how we see it. You can have a conversation about that. So that might be one good paragraph in which you're spending a sentence or 2 on each of the stages. You might choose to do 2 stages in one paragraph and 2 stages in another, and then your answer would be 2 paragraphs. If you were really garrulous or loquacious and you really liked to write, you might spend a smaller paragraph and have 4 of them to answer the question. Right? So you have to be accurate and you have to be complete. That's how you write a discussion post. Accurate and complete. Let me say something about the requirement to respond to other people's posts. I have no requirement. I'm not going to go through and count, and if you don't do it 3 times, I'm going to take off points. That's not how I work. I don't like the requirement of responding to other people's posts in a discussion forum. I never have, and in 10 years of doing this, I've never required it. What I require instead is that you participate, that you are active in the discussions. It's just like sitting in a regular NC classroom. I don't tell you you have to raise your hand 3 times. That's ridiculous. You raise your hand when you have something to say, or you have a question about what somebody else has said. And here, the classroom, raising your hand looks like posting a question in the discussion forum. Maybe a classmate writes something and you read that and you go, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Hit reply, type your question. Hey, Tom, why did you say this? Where did you find that in the text? I missed that part. Where is it? Whatever. That's the conversation to have. Those are the discussions to have. If at the end of the semester, I look in my faculty tools and I see that you have 587 unread discussion messages, I see that you've posted only twice per week, I know that you will not have participated. I then know that if we come to the end of the course and the grade is teetering right on the sort of cusp, and I might be tempted to encourage a higher grade because you've worked so very hard, but I see all of those other sorts of things, well, it isn't going to work for you. And at the end of the day, you're paying for this, and you should want to get your money's worth. So I don't count, but don't let that fool you into thinking that you don't have to post in the discussions. You do. You have to participate, be an active participant in the discussions. So every week, weekly discussions, pay attention to that. Those are due in accordance with the syllabus. The initial post is due by Thursday, and then the discussions flow between Thursday and Sunday. The next thing to pay attention to are 2 papers, paper number 1 and paper number 2. Paper number 1 and paper number 2 are each worth 20% of your final grade. And they are due at the end of week 3 for paper number 1, and that is on the 11th of September, and the end of week 6 for paper number 2, which is the 22nd of October. So if you go into, and you can see these now, go into week 3 now in the content areas. You're looking at it, it'll be over on the left side of your screen, week 3, and you'll see paper number 2. You can click on it. When you do that, you should be able to find the rubric for that, which is what I'll use to evaluate your paper. You'll see that paper number 1 really has everything to do about Plato's cave, which is what we're reading here in this first week. There's even, you got 4 possible questions to respond to. There's even a question about the Matrix and how that allegory of the cave could be like the movie The Matrix, you know, with Keanu Reeves as the one and all that kind of stuff. Neat, right? Have a read of that now, because that's going to be due at the end of week 3. And if you sort of keep an eye out for those material for that first paper as we go, you'll be in a far better position to write that paper due at the end of week 3. I don't have rough drafts due, none of that, just the paper is due by the end of week 3. You can do the same thing for paper number 2. You can see what it is now in week 6, and you can be starting to write that as we go through the term. The last thing that's a requirement in the course is something called the final project. I'm not sure why they call it a final project. It's just another paper. You could call it paper number 3. But this final project is worth more. It's worth 25%. And what this project asks you to do is to take the stuff that we've learned in the course, kind of apply it to your life, and figure out how you're going to move forward now. What's different about you as a person and what you're doing in life now as a result of this course? What did we learn from Plato? What did we learn from Aristotle? What kind of lessons can we take from Kant and from Mill about, how we should live our lives? Those sorts of things, that's the final project. Every one of these is roughly a 3 to 5 page paper. Every one of them, I'll be looking at things like your thesis sentence, your thesis statement. Is it clear? Is it concise? Does your introduction paragraph set up the rest of the paper? Are your paragraphs focused on single ideas set off by topic sentences and sufficient evidence that is articulated correctly, is the paper formatted correctly? You can understand that by reading each of those rubrics, okay? I'll talk more about this first paper assignment at the end of the week. At the end of every week, you can look in the announcements. I'll post a new video that kind of sums up the week that we just had and highlights a couple of the things of the week coming up. So keep an eye out in the announcements area for that. In our discussions forum, there's places to ask me questions at any point during the week. I check that once a day, if not more than that. I email check once a day, if not more than that. So there's never a reason to not ask a question, and I will make sure to get to it. And anybody, by the way, can post an answer to something. That's how we learn, is from each other. So that's all I wanted to say. Welcome to the class. A little bit of an overview, weekly discussions, and 3 papers. And that's what we got going in this class for philosophy. This week, it's Plato's Allegory of the Cave, and there's also some reading in there of the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Read that, get a basic understanding of how broad philosophy really is, and between all of those sorts of things, you'll be well prepared to answer this week's discussion question and post a little bit of an introduction. If you got questions for me, let them fly. I'll do the very best I can. I look forward to seeing you on the discussion boards. Have a great week.